I let my husband's work wife crash with us after her divorce. She sent me a text saying he's mine now, and changed the locks. My name is Kate Bennett. I'm 32 and for the last 6 weeks, I have been a prisoner in my own beautiful craftsman-style home in the heart of Portland, Oregon. The constant Pacific Northwest drizzle, which I usually found romantic and soothing, now felt like a cage, a gray, weeping curtain trapping me inside with a living nightmare I had foolishly helped to create. It all started with what seemed like a simple, compassionate offer, a gesture of kindness extended from a place of security and love. My husband, Mark, 33, and I have been married for 4 blissful, peaceful years. We had painstakingly built a life here among the towering Douglas firs and eclectic coffee shops, a life I was deeply, fiercely proud of. Our home was our sanctuary, filled with art we'd collected on our travels, books we'd read together, and the quiet, comfortable hum of a shared existence. Mark is a software architect, kind, brilliant, and possessed of a loyalty that was one of his most endearing qualities, until it became his greatest flaw. That unwavering loyalty is what ultimately plunged us into this abyss. His colleague and self-proclaimed work wife, Jessica, 31, had just gone through a nasty, public and emotionally devastating divorce. According to the dramatic, tear-soaked stories Mark relayed to me, her ex-husband was a monster, a financial and emotional abuser who had left her with nothing. No home, no savings, and a mountain of cunningly shared debt designed to cripple her. She'd been found sobbing in the office break room one afternoon, and Mark, my sweet, soft-hearted husband, ever the rescuer, had offered her our guest room for a week or 2 just to get back on her feet. I'll admit I hesitated. A deep, primal unease settled in the pit of my stomach. I'd met Jessica at numerous company holiday parties and summer barbecues. He was always, a lot. Loud where I was quiet, brash where I was reserved, overly familiar with Mark in a way that made my skin prickle. She was the type to touch his arm constantly while laughing a little too hard at his jokes, to call him Marky, in a proprietary tone that felt like a territorial claim. But she had always been perfectly, almost cloyingly, nice to me, and the thought of anyone, even someone as grating as Jessica, being left destitute and broken after a divorce twisted my stomach with genuine empathy. Who was I to deny someone safe harbor in a storm? Against my better judgment, silencing that internal alarm bell, I said yes. What kind of person would I be if I didn't? The woman who arrived on our doorstep a few days later with 2 oversized, expensive-looking suitcases and a designer handbag that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment was not the broken, vulnerable victim I'd envisioned. She was impeccably put together, her makeup flawless, her hair styled as if for a photo shoot. She swept into our home like she was a visiting dignitary inspecting her new quarters, her eyes scanning the living room with a subtle, critical appraisal. "Kate, you absolute angel," she'd gushed, descending upon me for air kisses that landed somewhere near my cheeks. "This place is so quaint. I just love what you've done with it. It must be so much work to keep it so lived in." The pause before lived in was a masterclass in condescension. The backhanded compliment should have been my first red flag. The second was that she barely looked at me after that. Her eyes, wide and shining with a calculated gratitude, were locked on Mark, who was dutifully hauling her heavy luggage upstairs. "Oh, Marky, you're my absolute hero," she simpered, following close behind him, her hand brushing his back. "I don't know what I would have done without you. I was so alone." Marky? I'd never called him that in my life. It felt like an intimacy stolen. The first week was tolerable, a period of uneasy adjustment. She was polite if not a little messy. A wine glass left on the mantel, a splash of expensive foundation on the guest bathroom towel, the subtle, sweet rotten smell of her perfume beginning to permeate the hallway. But by the end of week 2, the temporary guest had more into a permanent fixture with a shocking, unshakable sense of entitlement. The mask began to slip, revealing the calculating persona beneath. It started with the boundaries, or the complete, utter lack thereof. I'd be working from my home office. I'm a freelance graphic designer and my workspace is my zen den, and would come out to find her and Mark cooking dinner together. Not just cooking but performing a well-rehearsed domestic duet. They'd playfully bump hips in the kitchen, taste sauce off the same spoon, their laughter a little too intimate. She'd drape herself over the back of his chair while he was trying to work remotely, her long hair brushing his shoulder as she pointed at his screen. "Oh, that code is so messy, Marky. Let me show you a better way." He'd just laugh it off, shrugging. That's just Jess. She's a hands-on person. She can't help herself. My quiet protests, voiced in the privacy of our bedroom, were met with gentle deflection and mild exasperation. She's just grateful, honey. And she's going through a lot. Her self-esteem is in the toilet. Don't be insecure. You know you're the only one for me. His words were meant to reassure, but they only made me feel small and petty for having normal, rational concerns. Then came the systematic monopolization of my husband. Our cherished nightly rituals, curling up on the couch to watch a show together, debriefing our days, talking about our dreams, were utterly erased, replaced by their exclusive decompression time. They'd sit on the porch with a bottle of my best Pinot Noir, and I could hear her loud, braying laughter through the window, a sound that felt like an invasion. If I mustered the courage to join them, the vibrant conversation would instantly falter, shifting to impenetrable work gossip, arcane inside jokes about people I didn't know, technical acronyms I didn't understand. Jessica would give me a syrupy, sweet, patently false smile and say, "Oh, it's just boring tech stuff, Kate. You wouldn't find it funny. It's all algorithms and server talk." Mark would often nod in agreement, oblivious to the exclusion. "Yeah, honey, you'd be bored to tears." I began to feel like a stranger, a ghost haunting the corridors of my own home. I'd retreat to our bedroom, sitting alone in the dim light, listening to the echo of their easy camaraderie floating up the stairs, a knot of cold anger and profound loneliness tightening in my chest. This was my house. That was my husband. And I was locked out. The mess escalated from minor annoyances to outright invasions. Her expensive, potently scented skincare products littered the shared bathroom counter, claiming territory. Her laundry, often including lacy, delicate items that felt like a deliberate provocation, would sit for days in our washer, forcing me to handle her damp, personal garments just to wash my own clothes. I once found her using my very expensive, niche facial serum, leaving greasy fingerprints in the bottle. When I cautiously mentioned it, she waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, sorry, Kate. Mine ran out. I figured you wouldn't mind. We're all girls here, right?" The implication that we were somehow confidants, sharing everything, made my skin crawl. The final straw, the one that broke the camel's back, was more subtle than a wild party, but somehow far more intimate and violating. I'd spent a long, exhausting weekend catering a small local design conference for a little extra cash, a job that left me physically drained but professionally satisfied. I came home Sunday evening, aching and looking forward to a hot bath in my husband's company. To my surprise, the kitchen was spotless. The counters gleamed, the sink was empty, the dishwasher was humming. I thanked Mark, giving him a weary hug. He looked confused. "Oh, I didn't do it. Jess cleaned it. She said she felt bad you were always cleaning up after her and wanted to do something nice for you." I was touched for a fleeting moment. A flicker of hope that perhaps I'd misjudged her, that she was finally recognizing the imbalance. Then, craving comfort, I went to make a cup of tea. I opened the upper cabinet where I keep my favorite hand-thrown ceramic mug, a beautiful, imperfect, glazed piece gifted to me by my late grandmother. It was my talisman. It was gone. A cold dread settled in my stomach. I searched every cupboard, every shelf, the dishwasher, even the stupid little sink-side dish rack. It was nowhere. It had vanished. My heart began to hammer against my ribs. I found Jessica in the living room, curled up on my spot on the couch, scrolling through her phone. I tried to keep my voice level, polite. "Jessica, have you seen my blue ceramic mug? The one that's usually in the top left cupboard." She didn't look up from her phone for a full 10 seconds, a power play in itself. Then she finally lifted her gaze, her expression one of bland innocence. "Oh, that old chip thing," she said, her tone implying it was a piece of junk. "I'm so sorry, Kate. It was just so fragile. My hand slipped when I was washing it this morning. It shattered into a million pieces. I didn't want to upset you since you've been so stressed, so I just tossed the pieces in the trash and figured you'd never notice. It was kinda ugly anyway, no?" I stood there, utterly speechless. The air left my lungs. She'd broken a priceless, irreplaceable heirloom. She had disposed of it without a word, without a shred of respect or apology. And then she had replaced it with a bland, generic mug from the set we kept for guests. Her tone, it was devoid of any real remorse. It was a declaration. A quiet, brutal power move. She was showing me that nothing of mine was sacred, not my possessions, not my space, not my husband. That night I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I was past that. A chilling, steely calm had settled over me. I waited until we were alone in our bedroom and I sat Mark down on the edge of our bed. I looked him directly in the eyes and my voice was low, flat, and absolute. Mark, listen to me. It is her or me. She goes or I go. This is no longer a discussion. This is not a negotiation. This is an ultimatum. I told him about the mug. I watched the color drain from his face as he understood the significance. He'd seen her be messy, he'd heard her snide comments, he'd witnessed the boundary crossings, but this was different. This was deliberate, malicious destruction followed by a lie of omission. It was unconscionable. Seeing the genuine gutted look on my face, finally cut through the fog of his misplaced loyalty. Okay, he said, his voice quiet and thick with shame. Okay, you're right. I've been blind. I'll talk to her tomorrow. She has to leave. The conversation the next morning was brutal and illuminating. Jessica didn't cry genuine tears. She got cold, her eyes turning to shards of ice. She looked at Mark like he'd personally betrayed her, twisting the narrative instantly. After everything I've done for you at work, she hissed, her voice low and venomous. After all the late nights I've covered for you, the clients I've helped you secure, after everything we've been through together, you're throwing me out because your wife, she spat the word as if it were a curse, is jealous of our friendship? She can't handle you having a close friend? How pathetic. But we stood firm, a united front for the first time in weeks. We gave her 3 weeks, a more than generous timeline. We even, in a final act of decency, offered to pay her first month's rent and security deposit on a new apartment. She accepted the deadline with a stony, furious silence and then retreated to her room, slamming the door so hard a picture frame rattled on the wall. For the next 2 weeks the house was a morgue. The air was thick with unspoken hostility. She'd come and go without a word, the scent of her perfume leaving a bitter trail. I'd ask occasionally, my voice carefully neutral, if she'd found a place or needed help looking. The answers were always vague, dismissive, and non-committal. The rental market is incredibly tight right now. I'm waiting to hear back from a few places. It's not as easy as you seem to think it is. The deadline arrived. She hadn't packed a single box. Her suitcases remained empty in the closet. I knocked on her door that morning. She opened it, leaning against the frame with an infuriating aura of casualness, as if I were interrupting her day. Jessica, today's the day. What time were you thinking of moving out? We can help you load the car. She smirked, a tiny, cruel twist of her lips. It's not my problem you set an arbitrary deadline, Kate. I have rights. I receive mail here. My driver's license has this address. I've established residency. I've lived here for over 30 days. If you want me out, you'll have to formally evict me. She crossed her arms, a smug glint in her eye. Good luck with that. It can take months. The sheer, unadulterated audacity of it stole the air from my lungs. I felt dizzy. Mark, who had come to stand behind me, heard it all. For the first time he truly saw the person she was. Not a vulnerable friend but a manipulative, entitled user. The enemy in our guest room. We served her with a formal, legally vetted 30-day notice to vacate that very afternoon. Our lawyer friend emailed us a template and we printed it, handed it to her, and had her sign a document acknowledging receipt. The following month was a silent war. We documented everything, every interaction, every time she used a common area, the state of the house. We stopped engaging entirely. We were reluctant roommates with a hostile entity we were paying to house. The tension was a thick, suffocating fog in every room, a constant, oppressive weight on our chests. The court date, when it finally arrived, was a bleak, formal necessity. She didn't show up. The judge reviewed our documentation, heard our case, and granted the eviction. A sheriff was ordered to oversee her removal on a specific date, 1 week later. The morning of the eviction I felt nauseous with anxiety. What if she refused? What if she became violent? What if she broke something else, something truly precious? Mark and I waited in the living room, not speaking, just sitting in the grim silence, waiting for the law to arrive and break the siege on our home. The sheriff's deputy, a tall, imposing woman with a no-nonsense demeanor, knocked on our door promptly at 10 a.m. We explained the situation, showed her the court order. She nodded, her face professionally neutral, and marched to Jessica's room. We heard low, firm talking, Then Jessica's voice rising in a hysterical, theatrical shriek. You can't do this to me. This is my home. They're doing this because she's a jealous, pathetic bitch who can't keep her husband satisfied. He doesn't even want her. He tells me everything. The deputy's voice remained steady and firm. Ma'am, none of that is relevant to this court order. You need to gather your belongings and leave the premises now, or I will place you under arrest for trespassing and failure to comply with a lawful order. There was the sound of things being thrown, drawers slamming, the violent zip of a suitcase. After 20 minutes of this cacophony, Jessica emerged, her face blotchy with real tears of fury and manufactured despair, dragging 2 overstuffed suitcases. She stopped directly in front of me, her eyes burning with pure hatred. The deputy was a few feet away, giving us a moment but watching closely. You think you've won? She hissed, her voice low and venomous. A private poison meant only for me. You haven't. You have no idea. He's mine. He always has been. You're just the wife he's stuck with. I'm the one he wants. I'm the one he needs. She leaned in closer, her perfume suffocating. Check your phone. With that, she turned and flounced out the door, the deputy following closely behind her. My hands were trembling so violently I could barely hold my phone. I pulled it out of my pocket. There was a text from an unknown number, sent precisely 5 minutes earlier. Unknown number, he doesn't love you. He's just pitying you. He's been mine for years. He's staying with you out of obligation. I'm the one he talks to. I'm the one he dreams about. I'm the one he needs. He's mine now. Enjoy your hollow victory. You'll be alone soon. I showed it to Mark. His face went ashen. He looked like he was going to be physically sick. He grabbed my arms, his eyes wide with a horror that was utterly, devastatingly genuine. Kate, I swear to God, on my life, on everything I love, that is not true. None of it. She's insane. She's lying. She's trying to destroy us on her way out because she's lost. Please, you have to believe me. In that moment, looking into his terrified, earnest eyes, I saw the raw, unfiltered truth. I saw the depth of his regret and the terrifying realization of what his kindness had almost cost us. The text was the final desperate act of a narcissist who had lost, designed to poison my victory and sow seeds of doubt that could forever choke our marriage. And in a way it worked. The pure, unadulterated joy of her leaving was instantly tainted by the lingering, ugly venom she left behind. We changed the locks that very hour. We waited for the sound of her car to disappear down the street before we ventured into her room. It was trashed. A vindictive mess. Food wrappers and empty yogurt containers were shoved under the bed. My stolen jewelry dish, a small, beautiful crystal bowl we'd received as a wedding gift, was sitting on her nightstand as if she'd claimed it. Most disturbingly, we found her phone, plugged in and charging on the dresser. She'd been in such a rage she'd forgotten it. The screen lit up with notifications. And there, on the camera roll, were dozens of selfies she'd taken lying on my side of our bed, making kissy faces at the camera. It was vindicating and horrifying all at once. It took us days to physically cleanse the space, to scrub the feeling of her out of the walls, to wash every sheet, every towel, every trace of her presence. We burned sage. We opened all the windows to let the fresh, rain-washed Portland air blow through. The trust in my marriage took a direct, serious hit, but it's healing. Mark is in therapy, working intensely on his boundaries and his need to be the nice guy. We're in couples counseling, learning to communicate through this trauma. He knows with terrifying clarity how close he came to losing everything for the sake of being nice to someone who saw his kindness as a weakness to exploit. Jessica? She apparently moved in with a reluctant cousin across the river in Vancouver, Washington. Mark blocked her on everything: phone, email, all social media. The rumor from his work, which trickled down through a trustworthy friend, is that she was quietly let go shortly after the eviction for failure to return to work, and creating a hostile work environment by trying to drag other colleagues into her drama. The bridge isn't just burned, it's been vaporized, its ashes scattered to the 4 winds. I got my home back. I'm sitting in my favorite chair in the quiet with my reclaimed space around me. I'm fighting for my peace every day, learning to quiet the echo of her words. And I learned a brutal, expensive lesson about the profound, necessary cost of compassion without boundaries. You can offer someone a hand, but you must never, ever let them take your whole arm. And you should never, ever ignore that first quiet feeling of unease in your gut. It's usually right.